that the town assumes a lot of responsibility for the fact that those recommendations were ignored. The town was the lead agent. These reviews came in from these agencies and various asking for input. They had suggestions and recommendations. So the very thing that Brooks is talking about, it's our fault. We should have had somebody right there that said, you're going to take care of this, that, and the other thing. So, admittedly, that was a failing on our part, but hopefully now that we've got a group of people in here that are going to address those issues. And I know one thing, is some of the agencies in which we went back and asked them to request some information, we're happy to have us go back and review those things and put them in force again and involve them in the scope. So.
It was incredible to see the amount of labor and clarity in all of these comments, and they were just thrown out, nothing.
Admittedly, you weren't part of that process, directly or indirectly. You kind of inherit, frankly.
But the point is a valid point, and we'll certainly listen.
Okay.
No, I'm not trying to indict you with that. Nothing to do with Mr. Chandler or Mr.
No, and I want to make that clear that even though they may have assumed responsibility for a prior applicant, if I have taken assignment of their contract rights or lease rights, they didn't prepare that documentation. But that having been said, this gives us all an opportunity to engage in this process properly, openly, and with a high degree of transparency, and to be responsive to the needs and concerns of the communities involved. Because it is apparent upon review of the prior application, Richard, that those general tenets weren't followed. The reasons known and unknown, but they weren't followed. So you're looking for active engagement on both the part of the towns as well as the applicant here. Any comments from representatives of the town of Lyme? In terms of where we're moving thus far?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For Mr. Chandler. If you're talking about impacts and you're looking at artifacts and burial grounds here, what exactly is in place if your proposed construction goes forward? And you're digging and you run into artifacts or new burial grounds, I don't see anything addressing that. What is BP's policy on that?
I don't know that we have a state policy for that, but.
So you run across a new burial ground and you're digging. Do you stop digging and call in archaeologists? What exactly happens?
I don't think we have a state policy on that. We have to take a look at that and make sure we factor that into our application.
So how would we know as a community? Because those things are pretty important to protect and preserve.
There'll be if we get through the Art 10 process, there'll be a construction management and monitoring plan in place. I think in the first instance, presumably a significant amount of cultural assessment and historic preservation research has been done, and to the extent that there are places where we know of existing historic and cultural resources, that those will be avoided, but for purposes of the ongoing construction activity, that there will be a plan in place that would have specific provisions in it that would deal with not just that, but any other circumstances that this happens in Article 7 transmission line projects, where again the DPS staff is familiar with construction activities going on in a rural setting where you may or may not have historic.
Well, I think with the Asiona, I think a lot of people felt the shovel tests were inadequate that were done. So you might want to look back at those.
The other thing is SHPO, State Historic Preservation, has prepared regional mapping of areas where there's archaeological or historical sensitivity. And in my experience, those areas in terms of Native American artifacts and sacred areas almost uniformly involve areas around water bodies, streams, creeks, and waterfront. For a wide variety of reasons. And so the interesting thing is Cape Vincent is indeed a cape, and it is surrounded in essence by water, and it has tributaries that go into the lake. Your first reference, obviously, and you know this as well as I do, is looking at that mapping and seeing where there may be archaeologically sensitive areas that have already been established by SHPO, who has preempted it. And then secondly, having a protocol, because the overall area at one point in time was well occupied.
I'm pretty concerned about
Yeah,
what hasn't been on there.
Right, by Native Americans, and if artifacts are discovered, what is the protocol that's going to be followed? Who do you notify? How do you notify them? When do you notify them? And is this part of the overall program? So, point well made. And so everyone understands, the SHPO documents are not meant to be exclusive. They're more advisory, and it's best guess. It's not necessarily founded upon empirical data or evidence or historical data that they have, but they rely on a wide variety of sources of information to make those determinations. So it's not to preclude any other areas. Okay.
Well, I piggyback on her question.
Yes.
In the PIP, it states on page 15 that the company would meet once with the Onondaga Nation in November to discuss disturbance of sacred grounds. Did your company do that?
We did.
You did. And what was the result of the meeting?
The result of the meeting was that we gave them a project update and talked about items that would be important to them and what we would, and how we'd carry out the project. So understanding what they would be looking for on site, if there were areas of particular importance to them, could they highlight them?
Did you make any changes to your project from their feedback?
We haven't made any changes to the project.
Thank you.
See that with Sid Hill and Joe Heath? I'm assuming.
No. Those names don't ring a bell.
Okay. Well, Joe Heath's your general counsel.
I think that's it.
All right, okay, I'm just curious.
No, it's not. No.
Okay. At the outset, the question was asked of both of you gentlemen if you've had an opportunity to review local laws and ordinances that are in place, not only here in Cape Vincent, but also I assume in the town of Lyme. And I think your answer was yes, even though, John, you said it was probably a year ago. So this isn't a question, this isn't a quiz, but I guess part of the discussion we'd like to have today with you is a review of the local laws that you feel should not apply to your project. So we have a clear understanding as to what that may be, or what they may be.
Before we go there,
Yeah.
while we're still on identification of issues and input,
Right.
one area that I think we'd love to have follow-on dialogue on would be fire protection and emergency response with people that you identify if possible. If not, we'll try and identify them on our own, but who would be knowledgeable in your community about fire protection.
I'm really curious, why did you want to start that now?
I think we're trying to plan for submitting a preliminary scoping statement and then ultimately an application. So the more dialogue and understanding we can have over existing capability and potential future need, the more capable we're going to be able to put together a document that would address perhaps if you have sufficient capability in the community currently, wonderful. If you don't, we're going to have a plan to deal with them.
Because what else is on your list?
I think the other significant issue where we would welcome input is on transportation.
For who?
Transportation,
That's what we're talking about.
Like a road use agreement, kind of thing?
Road agreement, traffic control, intersection improvement.
I mean, there's some of it that really is kind of intuitive, because you see where we are, and you see that we are a small village in a relatively small township. So some things just, you know, it's not whether or not people here will be willing. It is just, obviously, it is more than just the local environment. You have to talk with the county, both for emergency service issues and transportation. It is more than just talking with our superintendent of highways. I mean, you see what you have here. It is a you know, a limited governmental body, and we have volunteerism that really runs emergency services. So I guess that's part of the reason why I thought it was a little premature.
And just to piggyback on that, just an observation I'm going to date myself by using the analogy of a slide rule. It really depends on the size of the project as to its impact on these two areas that you want specificity on.
well, I think for purposes of all these discussions, we're talking about the worst case scenario in
Yeah.
terms of the project size and
Right.
scope. So
You like that term?
it's the largest turbine that we would have available. It's the largest number of turbines. So we're working from that standpoint.
So you're going to you're starting from the max, your max, your maximum.
Correct.
Okay.
So
So,
you're saying the project will never be bigger than 285 megawatts?
correct.
In the town of Cape Vincent, correct? And what about in line, what's your intentions there?
When we have a project that's proposed right there, that's our plan.
Very good. Then.
Can we go on to local law? I mean, you've got some other issues we want to talk about. And admittedly, I think the sense is that that's a little premature, but can we talk about local law?
Yeah, anyway, just a point of clarification, because this, Chandler answered that question very consistently with the last time that he was before us. And my job is not to defend him. He's got very capable counsel to do that, he can defend himself. But the application that has been filed with the PFC includes the town line from a transmission standpoint. He is not in a position today, even though we did ask him this, to tell the people of the town line what their future intentions are, because there's not an application pending that would necessitate that. By the same token, I think it's safe to say that it's not precluding that. The town line may be involved at some point in time in the future, either by BP or maybe another industrial wind company, in an application for something that's similar to being considered for Cape Vincent. So, and I know we'd like to have broader clarification, but this gentleman today is not in a position to do that. But I think it's safe to say he's not precluding it either. He can't, one way or the other. Okay? So, forewarned is forewarned. Okay. Now, with that having been said, getting back into the specifics of the local laws. Are we at the point where we can go to that third point now? Richard?
I'm not sure that we got a clear answer on the transportation piece.
I think that the town's got to take that under advisement, because, and based on what your council has advised, if you are approaching this with the idea that the impacts are going to be maximum, i.e. in number and size, then I think we have to reflect on that and determine, and then hopefully try to provide you with some response.